So, we are skipping section 2.8 and we're moving right on to section 2.9. 2.8 is kind of extra stuff and stuff we'll end up getting to when we really need it. Right now, it's more important that we go ahead and finish out this whole translating thing. We did some easy translations when we talked about the code. That's the whole point of the code. This is coming back to the code, and we're going to be using the code, but now we're using it with a little more technical things. We're throwing in some fractions, we're throwing in some other stuff to make sure you've really mastered what the code is. Once we're sure that you've got the code down pat, then we'll start actually using the code to do some solving and some word problems and stuff. So for the more translating part, I'm looking at the classroom exercises on page 87. Problem number 4. It says the quotient of a number and 6 is 2/3. And they want you to translate it. When they say a quotient, remember there are 2 different ways you can write it. And I'm going to tell you right now, since your answer is in a fraction, you want to be careful, because normally I'd say just go for the fraction, because that makes it simpler in the long run. Just go ahead and go for the fraction. That's what I'm going to say this time too. Usually if they give you a fraction as your answer, that means you need a fraction in your problem. It's one of those unwritten math laws. Whatever they give it to you as is what they want your answer as. So if they give you fractions, they're going to want your answer to be fractions. Here our answer is already a fraction. If they give it to you as a mixed number, they want your answer to be a mixed number. If they give it to you as decimals, they want your answer to be in decimals. One of those unwritten laws in math. So here they say the quotient. So we said if we were going to write it as a fraction, that our first number goes on top. They didn't tell us what that was, so I'm going to put an N. And the second number, which is 6, is what goes on the bottom. We said is really means equals, and then 2/3 is 2/3. When you're writing fractions in your problem, I don't know if you've noticed that I do this, but I do. When you're writing fractions in your problem and you're going to solve, you always want to make it a big fraction bar that's flat. When you're writing it in your question and you're just copying it down, that's when you can write the little side one. I don't do that one when I'm working in a problem. That's why it switched from that to this. To me, that's prettier, but it is very impractical down here. So try to maintain this look for your fractions when you're doing fractions. Don't get in the side swipe thing, because that makes it harder to tell which one's which. Okay? Number 3. I know I'm going backwards, but you're okay. One half of a number is 34. 1/2 wasn't one of our code words, but 1/2 is a number. So 1/2 looks like that. What did we say of was? Multiplication. 1/2 of a number we said was going to be our n is 34. Simply writing it out from left to right. Let me get some space. I want good space for the next one. We got 2 more. It's going to be a short video too. Today's a short day. Problem number 5. 6 less than twice a number is 5. We know that 6 is a 6, less than is minus, twice a number is 2, times, and then our number is n, equals 5. So we squish, right? No, we don't squish. We don't squish yet. There's a problem. We've got that special phrase in here, that less than. That less than means you're supposed to flip your information. So instead of the 6 being on this side of the minus sign, the 6 has to go on the other side. Instead of this stuff being on this side of the minus sign, it has to go on that side of the minus sign. So now I have 2 times n on this side and 6 on that side equals 5. Now I can squish stuff together. Remember that less than flips your information, so what's in front goes behind and what's behind comes in front. It won't go across that equal sign, but everything else that's behind it needs to go in front. And then problem number 6 says the product of and a number squared is 45. Remember when we were going through our list of the sum of and the difference of? I told you there was a product of and a quotient of. And you don't have to have parentheses for the product of and the quotient of. Well, that's not how you spell number, is it? Number. Okay. But you do need to understand that there's going to be more than one number there when they say product of and quotient of. So we talked about how when you have quotient of, the first number you see goes on top and the second number you see goes on the bottom. Well, in product of, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which one comes first, which one comes second, but you do need to understand that there's multiplication in between them. So this is going to be 5 and a number squared, and that's where my multiplication comes in. The product comes where the and is. Just like in the sum of, the plus goes where the and is, and the difference of, the minus goes where the and is. So that gives me all this stuff is 45. So 5n squared is 45. So in this section we're setting up the equations. Once we learn how to solve the equations, then they'll ask you to solve them. But here they're just asking you to translate them. So for this section, the classwork is the practice exercises 2 through 12 even, and then the homework is the practice exercises 1 through 11 odd. And that finishes up everything for this chapter, which means you're ready to take your test. You will have 1 day to review for your test, and there is no video that goes with that. This is all on you. When you review for your test, I'm going to tell you now, the best thing for you to do is to work through the summary and review that is on page 90 and 91. I'm also going to look at the chapter test that's in your book. I'm also going to tell you that for this particular test, you need to concentrate more on sections 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, and 2-4, because there's very little from 2-5 through 2-8. 2-5 through 2-9. There's a little bit, but the majority of the problems come from 2-1, 2-2, 2-3, and 2-4, because those are some of the most important so far that can be tested. We're going to worry more about testing on the translating when we get into section 3, into chapter 3. That's when we do a lot of the translating, and it actually gets checked as translating. So please make sure you concentrate on that top half, on taking care of the order of operations. Make sure you can combine like terms. Make sure you know what the properties are, because they're on the test, and it's like 10 points on the test for your properties, but like 60 points for order of operations. So make sure you know the order of operations really well. Make sure you show me your work on your test. That's really important, because I can't give you partial credit if you don't show me stuff. All those things are important when you take your test. Your mom should have your test already, and the review should be there. And if you want extra credit, I'm starting to work on some ideas for what you could do for extra credit, so stay tuned for that coming up in the future. And I will talk to you when you start chapter 3.